Hello, book enthusiasts, and welcome to Listen with Best Audiobooks. All our audiobooks are originally written, produced, and narrated by us. We don't reuse or repurpose third-party content. Every script, voice, and edit is made exclusively for this channel. Now, sit back, relax, and let's begin today's audiobook.
Today I introduce a new book that's called How Great Communicators Win Trust and Influence People. I will share it with you, with my voice. Every word you're about to hear has been crafted for one purpose: to help you speak in a way that earns respect, builds connection, and changes lives. This is not a book about public speaking. It's not about sounding clever. This is about learning how to make people feel safe when you speak. It's about saying what matters, clearly, calmly, and powerfully. In this journey, we're going deep. Chapter by chapter, I'll show you how some of the world's greatest communicators became. If you've ever felt like your voice wasn't enough or your words didn't land, this book will help you change that. If this voice resonates with you, subscribe now, because the person you're becoming deserves to be heard. Chapter 1. The first impression begins before you speak. There's something powerful that happens in the silence before words. Long before a single sentence is spoken, people are already forming opinions, drawing conclusions from posture, eye contact, energy, and presence. This moment, though quiet, is one of the loudest opportunities a communicator ever has. Great communicators know that influence begins not at the first word, but at the first impression. Most people walk into a room hoping to impress, but those who truly win trust do something else. They prepare to connect. This preparation doesn't happen on stage or in front of the audience. It happens in the mind, in the heart, in the way someone carries their inner stillness into the space around them. You've seen it before. Someone enters, and suddenly the temperature changes. They didn't raise their voice. They didn't demand attention. They simply arrived with presence. That's the first lesson of great communication. It begins before you speak. Presence isn't a mystery. It's not some magical quality gifted to a few. It's built. It's cultivated. It's the product of deep self-trust, calm awareness, and deliberate attention to the moment. It's what happens when you walk in, not with noise in your head, but with clarity in your spirit. People can sense when someone is fully present. It's in the way the eyes meet without darting away. It's in the way someone listens, not waiting to speak, but truly receiving what's being said. It's in the way a person speaks with measured cadence, not rushing to fill the silence. Presence says, "I'm here, with you." And that simple message builds trust faster than 100 clever lines. In communication, trust is everything. Without trust, words fall flat. Without trust, influence dies before it begins. And trust, at its core, is not something you get from others. It's something you carry into the room. It's the sense that you are not trying to perform, not trying to manipulate, not trying to win anyone over. You're just being honest, clear, and intentional. Some of the greatest communicators in history didn't have the loudest voices. They didn't have the most charisma. What they had was alignment between their body, their words, and their intention. What they said matched how they looked. How they looked matched how they felt. There was no gap between their message and their energy. That's what made people lean in. That's what made them believable. This chapter isn't about words. It's about the preparation behind the words, the moments before a speech, the breath before a sentence, the silence before a reply. These are the spaces where real connection is born. Imagine you're about to speak to a group of strangers. The nervous energy is real. Your heart is racing. You feel the pressure to impress. What most people do at this moment is panic. They try to grab attention fast. They speak quickly, hoping to appear confident. They rush, hoping to avoid awkwardness. But the great communicators, they do the opposite. They pause, they breathe, they look around the room, they feel the silence, they own it, And when they finally speak, the words land like bricks, solid, intentional, trusted. Before every great communication moment, there is a preparation that happens internally. It's not about memorizing lines. It's not about forcing a smile. It's about aligning with your purpose. Why are you speaking? What are you trying to create? What truth are you trying to carry across? When your purpose is clear, your presence becomes powerful. And when your presence is powerful, your words gain weight. Let's go even deeper. Consider this. Most people speak to be heard, but great communicators speak to be felt. The difference changes everything. Being heard is about volume. Being felt is about alignment. It's about delivering a message that goes past the ears and into the heart. Think about someone you trust deeply. When they speak, do you analyze every word? Probably not. You trust their intention, you trust their tone, you trust their presence. That's what great communication feels like. It's not flawless, it's not always articulate, but it's real. The best communicators don't hide behind polished language. They're not afraid to be quiet. They're not afraid to be simple. They don't chase attention. They command it through authenticity. And that's where most people get it wrong. They think communication is about performance. But performance is exhausting. It's unsustainable. Eventually, people see through it. Great communicators don't perform. They reveal, they share, they offer. Let me show you a moment that proves this. Years ago, a young teacher stood in front of a small classroom in a poor neighborhood. His job wasn't glamorous. His students were tough. They didn't care about poetry. They didn't want to be there. But the teacher didn't walk in trying to impress them. He didn't bring flashy slides or fancy speeches. He just sat on the edge of the desk, looked them in the eyes and said, "I know this isn't easy. I know you've been told you won't make it. But I'm here because I believe you can. And I'll be here every single day until you believe it too." The room went silent. One by one, heads lifted. A connection formed. Not through logic, not through argument, but through truth and presence. That teacher wasn't trying to win. He was trying to serve, and that is the secret that unlocks trust in every room. Service over self. People trust those who put connection before control. People listen to those who make them feel safe, not small. And that safety comes not from scripted language, but from showing up fully human. This chapter isn't about tricks. It's not about mastering body language or memorizing emotional hooks. It's about stepping into a room with calm strength. It's about knowing that you don't need to speak first to make an impression. You just need to be there, fully, honestly, quietly, powerful. Every conversation is a chance to build trust. Every moment of silence is a chance to deepen presence. Every word you speak carries energy. And when that energy is rooted in truth, people will feel it. So before you write your next speech, before you have that next important conversation, ask yourself, what energy am I bringing? Am I trying to control, or am I trying to connect? Am I rushing to be heard, or am I ready to be received? The greatest communicators don't just speak well, they prepare well. And that preparation begins not on paper, but in the heart. Because before people will ever believe your words, they must believe you. Chapter 2, Trust is felt, not explained. Trust doesn't arrive with a grand entrance. It doesn't come with badges, certificates, or polished presentations. It arrives quietly through tone, through timing, through the feeling people get when they're around you. And often, long before trust is spoken, it's already decided, not by logic, but by instinct. Most people think trust is about words. They believe if they say the right thing, the other person will believe them. But the truth is simpler and harder. People don't trust what they hear. They trust what they feel. And what they feel is shaped not by the sentence, but by the sender. You can tell someone you care. You can repeat it 100 times, but if your energy says you're distracted, rushed, or uncertain, the words won't land. On the other hand, Even the simplest sentence, "I'm here with you," spoken with true presence, can open a door that no explanation ever could. That's the secret of great communicators. They don't try to convince. They don't over-explain. They let their being speak before their mouth ever opens. Their energy calms the space. Their intention is clean. And their listeners lean in, not because they're told to, but because they want to. Think of the people in your life you trust the most. Now ask yourself, was it their vocabulary that won you over? Or was it their consistency, their tone, the way they looked at you without judgment? That's the kind of trust that lasts. It's not built on information. It's built on alignment. Alignment means that everything matches. The face matches the words. The tone matches the message. The actions match the promise. When everything lines up, people don't have to wonder what's real. They feel it, and in that feeling, trust is born. Now here's something you might not hear often. Building trust takes courage, because real trust can only come from vulnerability. When you drop the act, when you stop performing, when you allow yourself to be seen, that's when people begin to trust you. But most people are scared to be seen. They hide behind clever phrases. They overcomplicate. They speak in circles, trying to sound smarter than they feel. And in doing so, they lose the one thing that makes them powerful: relatability. Great communicators don't hide their humanity. They lean into it. They let their pauses carry meaning. They let silence do some of the work. They trust the moment enough to be quiet when quiet is what's needed. Let's take an example. A young woman once gave a speech to a room full of executives. It was her first time. She had prepared for weeks. She knew her material. But when she stood up, her voice trembled. Her notes shook in her hand. And for a moment, everyone looked away, uncomfortable. Then she did something brave. She took a breath, looked up, and said, "I'm nervous. I care about this more than I can say. So if I shake a little, just know it's because this matters to me." And just like that, the room shifted. People looked back. They smiled. They softened. Not because she spoke perfectly, but because she told the truth. She didn't try to perform. She didn't try to hide. She just showed up fully, honestly, humanly. And in doing so, she won the room. That's what trust sounds like. It's not flashy. It's not clever. It's clear. And clarity is rare. In a world full of noise, great communicators know how to cut through, not with volume, but with truth. They don't try to impress. They focus on making others feel understood, and in that understanding, a bond is formed that no competition can break. Now let's talk about rhythm. Yes, rhythm. Because every great communicator has a rhythm. It's not about speaking fast or slow. It's about matching the moment. Sometimes a message needs stillness. Sometimes it needs urgency. Sometimes it needs warmth, and sometimes it just needs space. The greatest communicators read the room the way a musician reads a crowd. They know when to slow down, when to lean in, when to step back, and they adjust. Not because they're manipulative, but because they're tuned in. Tuning in is about listening, not just with ears, but with eyes, body and spirit. It's noticing when someone is holding back. It's sensing discomfort and responding with grace. It's knowing when a moment is too full and choosing not to add more. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You need to be real. And when you're real, you don't just speak to the surface. You speak to the core. People crave that kind of connection. They're tired of being sold to. They're tired of being managed. They want to be met. They want to be spoken to like humans, not checklists. That's where trust is formed, not in logic, but in presence. And here's the final truth for this chapter. Trust is slow to build, but fast to break. A single word spoken without care can undo years of goodwill. One moment of inauthenticity can create doubt that lingers. That's why great communicators guard their intention. They speak with care. They understand the weight of what they carry. They know that influence is not about control, it's about service. And service means asking, every time, how can I leave this person better than I found them? Because when people feel respected, they begin to open up. When people feel safe, they begin to hear. And when people feel seen, they begin to trust. So if you want to be a great communicator, don't chase fancy language. Don't try to sound smart. Just show up with heart. Speak with purpose. Pause when you don't know what to say. And remember, silence is part of the message too. Before you say the next thing, ask yourself, will this help build trust? If not, maybe it's worth waiting a little longer. Because trust isn't just a part of communication. It is communication. Chapter 3. Speak so people feel understood. The most powerful speakers in the world have one thing in common. They don't just make people listen. They make people feel heard. And when someone feels heard, everything changes. Defenses drop, walls come down, trust is built without asking. Influence becomes a natural consequence, not a forced goal. Most people enter conversations with one mission: to be understood, to prove their point, to make sure their words are accepted. But great communicators reverse that instinct. They prioritize making the other person feel seen first. They understand that people don't listen to respond, they listen to be acknowledged. And if you give them that gift, they'll give you their attention in return. Understanding begins with attention, not partial attention, not distracted scrolling or glancing at a clock. Real, anchored attention, the kind where your body says, I'm here, even before your mouth opens. When people feel you are truly present with them, their words get clearer, their emotions get safer. Their guard begins to drop, slowly but surely. But here's where most people go wrong. They listen with the intent to reply. They're already formulating what they'll say next, while the other person is still speaking. And because of that, the person talking never feels fully heard. Great communicators do the opposite. They don't rush in, they allow space. They give silence room to speak too. A powerful pause, a steady breath, a nod that signals, I hear you. These small gestures often matter more than eloquent speeches. Because communication isn't just about sharing ideas. It's about making people feel emotionally safe enough to be open. And emotional safety is rare in a world that rushes everything. Think about the last time someone made you feel truly heard. It probably wasn't because they offered a brilliant solution or said something groundbreaking. It was because they leaned in, stayed with you, and made no effort to correct or direct you too soon. That feeling, that you matter moment, is what you must aim to create. Great communicators also recognize that not every message is in the words. People say I'm fine when they're not. They smile when they're exhausted. They nod while silently screaming inside. And unless you're paying attention to the tone beneath the tone, you'll miss the truth hiding in plain sight. The most persuasive minds in history understood that real connection lives in nuance. A shift in posture, a break in eye contact, a tension in the jaw. These are signals, not noise. And those who notice them win trust, not because they're clever, but because they care enough to see what others don't. Now you might wonder, how do I develop that kind of awareness? It starts with slowing down. Most conversations are rushed. Words fly, replies bounce. The pace is set to survive, not to connect. But slowing down is a form of respect. It signals that the person in front of you is worth your full energy. And when people feel that, they respond differently. They open up. They lean close. They listen back. Slowing down also helps you choose words with intention. Instead of filling space with noise, you wait for meaning. You speak to the moment, not to your insecurity. And people can feel that difference. The quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need to rush becomes magnetic. But none of this works without empathy. Empathy isn't just feeling what someone else feels. It's the ability to communicate that feeling back to them in a way that says, you are not alone. That's what great communicators do. They don't lecture from above. They walk alongside. They don't fix. They understand. And in that understanding, influence is born. Influence isn't manipulation. It's not about steering people. It's about serving them so well with your presence and words that they choose to walk your way. And that only happens when people feel valued, not managed. When someone tells you their story, they're giving you a map to their inner world. If you dismiss it, judge it, or interrupt it, you close the door. But if you honor it, if you let them know their map matters, you earn the right to speak into their life. And that's when your words begin to carry weight. A whisper from someone you trust is louder than a shout from someone you don't. And trust is built in the quiet spaces, in the moments between words, in the choice to listen longer than necessary, in the discipline to be still when silence is sacred. There's a story about a wise leader who rarely spoke during meetings. People often mistook him for shy, but when he did speak, the entire room went silent. Why? Because when he spoke, people listened, not because of the volume, but because of the value. He had spent years building trust, not with speeches but with presence. You can do the same. Start by being more interested than interesting. Let your curiosity guide the conversation. Ask questions not to gather data, but to gather depth. Ask, what was that like for you? Instead of, why did you do that? Ask, how did that feel? Instead of, what happened next? The way you phrase a question reveals your heart, and people can feel it. When you approach with judgment, they retreat. When you approach with care, they reveal. And the more they reveal, the more real the relationship becomes. This applies in every context: friendships, business, family, even strangers. When you speak in a way that makes people feel safe, they remember you. Not for your credentials, not for your grammar, but for the way they felt around you. That feeling becomes your reputation, and your reputation becomes your influence. If you want to be a great communicator, make this your new goal. Speak not to impress, but to connect. Impressing is fleeting. Connection lasts. Impressing makes people admire you. Connection makes people trust you. And when people trust you, you don't have to fight for attention. You earn it. So take a moment to ask yourself, when I speak, do people feel safer or smaller? Do they feel understood or analyzed? Do they feel like I'm trying to win or trying to know them? The answers to these questions will determine the depth of your influence, because great communication isn't a performance. It's a practice. It's the discipline of being real when fake would be easier. It's the courage to be present when distraction calls. It's the humility to be curious when ego wants to dominate. It's not about talking more. It's about speaking better. And better doesn't mean fancier. It means clearer, truer, cleaner. Speak so people walk away, not just remembering what you said, but remembering how you made them feel. That feeling, that deep, steady, grounded sense of I was seen, is the real win. It's not about the applause. It's about the impact. And impact always begins with listening. So listen harder, see deeper, speak slower, and let your words become a bridge, not a wall. Chapter 4. The Power of Silence and Timing in Speech. Great communicators know something that most people never truly learn: when not to speak is just as important as what to say. In fact, sometimes silence speaks louder than any word ever could. It holds tension, it releases pressure, it creates space for the other person to feel, and in that space, real connection begins. There's a rhythm to powerful communication. It's not a race, it's not a performance, it's music. And like all great music, it needs timing. It needs pause, it needs rest. If every note played at once, it would be noise. But when the notes are given space, they become melody. And that's how speech works when it's guided by intention instead of ego. Some people think talking more means communicating better. But in truth, The ones who influence us most often say less. They don't flood us with words, they deliver meaning with precision. They pause when others panic. They speak slowly when others ramble. Their silence doesn't create awkwardness. It builds gravity. In every meaningful conversation, there comes a moment where the air changes. You feel it, the energy shifts. Maybe someone shares something raw, maybe there's emotion under the surface, maybe there's tension in the air. A weaker communicator tries to fill that space with noise. A great communicator honors it. They hold the silence, steady and calm, allowing the moment to breathe. That pause is powerful. That silence tells the other person, I see you. I'm here. You don't need to rush. And in that stillness, people feel safe. They go deeper. They tell the truth. They drop their masks, because great communicators make room for humanity, not just information. But timing isn't just about silence. It's about when to speak, how long to wait, when to lean in, when to let go. It's emotional intelligence in motion. Imagine this. Someone is in pain. Maybe they just lost something. Maybe they've been hurt. In that moment, advice feels like a weapon. Words, even good ones, can feel like pressure. But presence, patience, and silence can feel like peace. Great communicators know the value of waiting. Waiting for the right moment to offer a thought. Waiting for the emotion to settle. Waiting for the energy to align. They don't rush insight, they invite it. Think of the best conversations you've ever had. Were they rushed? Were they full of fast interruptions and loud opinions? Or were they slow, warm, honest, and calm? The ones you remember were probably the ones where time didn't feel like it was moving. That's the effect of rhythm. That's the gift of well-timed speech. There's an old saying, don't speak unless you can improve the silence. That's not a command to be quiet. It's a reminder to be wise, to be present, to let the moment tell you what it needs, not what you feel you need to say. And when you follow that wisdom, you start communicating to the moment, not through habit. The greatest leaders, teachers, and mentors know this instinctively. They let their words land. They don't double back. They don't over-explain. They allow a single sentence to sit in the air like incense, letting it drift, linger, and settle, because some truths need space to echo. Imagine a speaker on stage. He tells a story that touches the heart of everyone in the audience, but instead of rushing to the next point, he pauses. He looks around. He breathes. He lets the silence do its job. And in that moment, something magical happens. Connection. Everyone feels it. No one can explain it. But it's there. It's real. That is the power of well-timed speech. But timing isn't always natural. It takes practice. It begins by becoming more aware of your impulses. Are you speaking because the silence makes you nervous? Are you rushing because you fear being misunderstood? Are you filling space because you're uncomfortable with stillness? If so, that's okay. That's human. But awareness is the first step to change. Start small. Practice waiting an extra second before replying in conversations. Let others finish fully. Don't interrupt, even if you're excited. Let the silence fall after someone speaks, just for a beat, and watch what happens. People begin to trust you more. They feel you're truly with them. They sense your presence, not just your words. And slowly, your conversations start to carry more depth, more truth, more impact. Timing also matters in delivery. A punchline lands better with pause. A powerful statement hits harder after silence. A truth sounds truer when it stands alone. You don't need to talk faster to be convincing. You need to pause more to be powerful. A skilled communicator uses silence as punctuation, as music, as signal, because communication is not just logic. It's energy, it's emotion, it's rhythm. There's a reason stories are remembered better than facts. Stories breathe. They carry emotion, pace, suspense, softness, and within them the speaker's timing carries as much meaning as their words. A great storyteller doesn't just recite events, they shape the journey. They let the quiet moments stretch. They use voice tone, pauses, and pacing to build emotional trust, and the audience follows not just because of the story, but because of the way it feels. You can do this in everyday life, whether you're on a stage, on a phone call, in a meeting, or across the dinner table. If someone's anxious, speak slowly. If someone's excited, match their energy. If someone is grieving, say less. If someone is confused, pause longer. These are not rules, these are rhythms, and rhythm is what creates flow. When your speech matches the emotional rhythm of the moment, people listen without resistance, because it feels right. It feels human. Great communicators also understand the tension of silence. Sometimes silence is uncomfortable. It stretches long enough to make people nervous. But that discomfort can be used as leverage. It can open space for honesty, for reflection, for truth. In negotiation, in conflict resolution, in counseling, silence is a tool, a gentle pressure that says, "I'm waiting, I'm listening, say what you really mean." It can lead to breakdowns or breakthroughs, depending on how it's held. But if you fear silence, you'll always fill it. And in filling it, you'll miss what it was trying to reveal. Silence isn't passive, it's powerful. It's not the absence of communication. It's the container that holds the most important parts. When used well, it's not empty. It's full of presence, full of intention, full of energy, and people feel it. So what does this mean for you? It means stop fearing silence. It means speak less, but with more purpose. It means pause often, but not awkwardly. It means trust that your presence, your eye contact, your attention, they all speak just as loud as your words. It means be brave enough to wait before reacting, breathe before answering, listen before judging, because in that waiting, in that breathing, in that listening, you become more trustworthy, more magnetic, more real. This is the essence of great communication. Not the words themselves, but the space between them. The timing, the feeling, the energy. So let your speech carry rhythm. Let your words land with gravity. Let your pauses breathe. And remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Chapter 5. Emotional Safety. The foundation of all powerful conversations. Every word lands differently when the person listening feels safe. You can say the right thing in the wrong atmosphere and lose everything. But say it in a space where the heart feels protected, and even the hardest truths can be received with grace. This is what great communicators understand instinctively. Before they attempt to be heard, they first make sure the other person feels emotionally safe. Emotional safety is not softness. It's not weakness. It's not about sugarcoating truth. It's about creating a space where people don't feel judged, threatened, or manipulated. It's the difference between conversation and confrontation. In one, people open up. In the other, they shut down. If you want to earn trust, this is where it starts. Not with your intelligence, not with your credentials, but with your presence. The calm, steady signal you give that says, "You're safe here. I'm not here to win. I'm here to understand." That signal changes everything. People don't open up when they feel tested. They open when they feel seen. They don't share when they feel challenged. They share when they feel accepted. And here's the hard truth. Most people have never really felt safe while being fully themselves. They've been talked over, silenced, laughed at, ignored. So when you finally become the person who listens without attacking, hears without judging, and responds without ego, you become unforgettable. Think about the people you trust the most. The ones you can talk to at 2 a.m. The ones you call when everything falls apart. Are they the smartest, the loudest, the most opinionated? Or are they the ones who make you feel calm, clear, and human? That's emotional safety. And it's built through small, invisible signals. Eye contact, voice tone, posture, the way you pause before answering, the way you nod when someone speaks, the way you don't rush to correct or compete. Great communicators aren't just masters of language, they're masters of emotional presence. They read what isn't said, they feel what's underneath, and they adjust, gently, to make room for what needs to be felt. Sometimes emotional safety means holding back. Not because you're withholding truth, but because the moment isn't ready. Timing matters, readiness matters. People don't change when they're pushed, they change when they're ready, and they become ready when they feel secure. In arguments, most people just want to win. They raise their voice, cut each other off, get louder, sharper, more defensive, but great communicators disarm all of that, not by overpowering, but by underpowering. They drop the shield, they soften the tone, they slow down, and in doing so, they signal, this isn't war, this is connection. And that tone changes the entire room. Emotional safety also comes from consistency. If your reactions change every time, people won't trust you. If you laugh one day and snap the next, they'll walk on eggshells. But if you stay emotionally stable, even when others don't, they'll begin to open up. It's not about being perfect. It's about being predictable in your peace. When people know how you'll handle things, they let their guard down. And when the guard is down, hearts open. And when hearts open, trust is built. You don't build emotional safety by being passive. You build it by being intentional. You choose your words with care. You monitor your tone. You give space when emotions rise. You pause instead of push. Because great communicators are not afraid of silence. They're not afraid of emotion. They're not afraid of letting the other person be seen first. In relationships, whether personal, professional, or public, this principle is gold. Before you lead, make them feel safe. Before you correct, make them feel seen. Before you teach, make them feel heard. Before you speak, make sure your energy says, I'm with you, not above you. This is how trust is born. And trust is the soil in which all influence grows. It doesn't matter how persuasive you are if people don't trust you. It doesn't matter how right you are if people feel unsafe. Your words won't matter if your presence feels dangerous. But when you become a safe place for people without compromising your strength, you unlock something rare. You gain the permission to speak into hearts, not just minds, and that's where transformation begins. Great communicators create emotional safety, not to manipulate, but to elevate. They understand that people who feel safe rise higher. They learn faster. They grow deeper. They let go easier. And they receive more truth without resistance. Because safety breeds openness. And openness invites change. This is the secret most overlooked in communication training. It's not about the script. It's not about the pitch. It's not about charisma. It's about the energy behind your words. Are you here to dominate or to connect? Are you here to perform or to understand? Are you here to impress or to empower? When the answer becomes clear, your conversations begin to change. People stop bracing. They start breathing. And in that breathing, they find themselves. They find the truth. And they find you, not as a talker, but as a listener. Not as a fixer, but as a presence. So how do you build this kind of presence? Start with your nervous system. If your body is tense, your words will be sharp. If your breathing is shallow, your tone will be rushed. If your mind is racing, your responses will feel forced. But when you calm yourself, you calm the conversation. Breathe deeply. Slow your thoughts. Lower your voice. Soften your eyes. Be here, fully, without agenda, without pressure. And in that space, people feel you. Not just hear you, but feel you. And that feeling, calm, grounded, safe, is what opens doors. It's what makes even hard truths digestible. It's what turns correction into care. It's what makes someone say, I don't know why, but I trust you. And when you earn that kind of trust, you've stepped into rare ground. So let every word you speak come from that place, not of urgency, but of alignment, not of performance, but of peace. Because when you become a communicator who can create emotional safety, you don't just influence people, you heal them. Chapter 6, Mastering the Pause, the Hidden Power in Silence. It wasn't what he said that made the room lean in. It was the silence that came before. That pause, gentle, confident, and unhurried, carried more weight than a dozen rehearsed lines, because in that moment it wasn't just a pause, it was presence. Great communicators know something most people never learn. Silence is not a gap in conversation, it's a tool. A pause is not an absence of sound, but a presence of power. The pause slows down time, it sharpens attention, it gives breath to the words that come next, and it invites the listener to lean closer. Think about the most persuasive people you've ever heard. They don't rush, they don't stumble through filler words to avoid the quiet, they let the silence live. And in that silence, meaning grows. The average person fears silence. They treat it like dead air, a failure of thought, a sign of weakness. But in truth, silence is strength restrained. It is composure revealed. It is the mark of someone so secure, they don't need to fill every second to prove they belong. The pause is not hesitation. It is precision. The well-timed pause between ideas gives each thought space to breathe. It adds weight to your words. It shows you're not in a hurry to impress, you're here to connect. In heated moments, a pause can prevent regret. Before a defensive reaction, before a careless reply, before a sharp retort, a pause holds space. It says, let me respond, not react. That single second can change the outcome of an entire conversation. Great communicators also understand that a pause isn't just for themselves, it's for the listener. It gives others room to think, to process, to feel. When you speak without pause, you might deliver information, but you rob people of transformation, because people need time to digest. Not just hear. The pause also signals control. When a speaker uses silence well, the audience feels guided, not rushed. They follow the rhythm. They trust the pace. And in that flow, attention deepens. A leader who knows when to pause commands a room, not with force, but with gravity. Nowhere is this more important than during difficult conversations. When tension is high, when emotions run deep, when truth feels sharp, silence becomes the soft pillow that truth lands on. A pause between sentences gives both people time to breathe, time to regulate, time to return to the humanity of the moment, instead of spiraling into conflict. The best communicators are not afraid of letting things settle. They know that silence does not mean disconnection. Sometimes silence is connection, a shared moment of presence, a wordless agreement that says, we're in this together. This is especially true in one-on-one conversations, whether you're mentoring, counseling, parenting, or just supporting a friend. What you don't say can be just as important as what you do. A nod, a breath, a stillness between sentences. These things say, I hear you. I'm not rushing this. Take your time. And that kind of space is healing. In negotiations, the pause is a strategic weapon. State your position and stop. Don't explain it away. Don't fill the gap. Let the silence press on the other side, because often the one who breaks the silence first gives ground. In public speaking, the pause amplifies impact. The best speakers know how to use silence like punctuation. They don't just talk. They orchestrate. Words rise, pause. Words fall, pause. And in that rhythm, the audience is moved, not just informed. It's music, not just message. Even in digital communication, the pause matters. A slow response to a text, a considered reply to an email. These subtle delays, when intentional, carry depth. They say, "I didn't just react, I reflected," and that reflection makes the response trustworthy. The problem is most people fear silence because they fear losing control. They worry that if they don't keep talking, the other person will lose interest, take over, or think less of them. But the opposite is true. Silence draws people in. It creates intrigue. It builds suspense. It invites curiosity. When you become comfortable with silence, you become more dangerous in the best way, because now you control time. You're not rushed. You're not desperate. You own the moment, and people feel that. In leadership, a pause before giving direction shows you're considering all angles. It makes your decision feel thoughtful, not reactive. It gives weight to your authority, not through volume, but through depth. In conflict resolution, the pause gives dignity. It says, "I respect this enough to sit with it before I speak." That's rare, and rare becomes powerful. Even in storytelling, the pause holds magic. It lets the moment land. It gives the listener time to imagine, to remember, to feel. A good storyteller doesn't just deliver words. They guide emotion, and that guidance happens in the pause between sentences, where imagination lives. But mastering the pause requires discipline. You must quiet the urge to fill. You must train your body to breathe through the discomfort. You must rewire your mind to trust that silence is not your enemy, it's your ally. It takes time, practice, presence. Start small. When you feel the urge to interrupt, wait 2 seconds longer. When you're asked a question, breathe once before answering. When delivering important news, speak slowly and let the silence carry the weight. Notice how the room shifts, how people lean in, how respect rises. Not because you spoke more, but because you paused better. And soon, you'll discover something powerful. Silence speaks. It speaks confidence. It speaks care. It speaks intention. And those who learn to listen to silence begin to hear what others miss. This is the secret of the most persuasive minds. They don't rush. They don't overtalk. They listen to silence, and they use it. In a world that moves fast, filled with noise and distraction, the one who learns to pause becomes unforgettable. Their presence feels different. Their message lingers longer, and their words strike deeper. So the next time you feel the urge to fill space, remember this. A well-timed pause can carry more influence than 1,000 words, because in that space people hear not just your voice but their own heart. And that's where true connection begins. Chapter 7. Speak to serve, not to show off. True influence doesn't come from showing off what you know. It comes from showing up for the person in front of you. The world's most persuasive minds aren't trying to win conversations. They're trying to win trust. And trust isn't built by talking louder. It's built by talking with care. The problem is too many people speak to impress. They fill their words with jargon, name-drop accomplishments, and over-explain everything to sound smart. But in doing so, they create a wall, not a bridge. What they fail to understand is that the most respected communicators don't speak from a place of ego. They speak from a place of service. Every time you open your mouth, ask yourself, am I trying to serve this person, or am I trying to prove something? Because the energy behind your words is what people truly feel. When you speak to serve, your tone softens, your pace becomes more patient. You listen longer before responding. You think about what the other person needs, not just what you want to say. And that shift in motive is what builds connection. The greatest communicators have nothing to prove. They aren't in a rush to dominate. They don't speak in a way that makes others feel small. They speak in a way that makes others feel safe. They hold their words like medicine, not like weapons. A teacher who speaks to serve doesn't try to sound superior. They simplify complexity. They meet people where they are. They don't teach to look smart. They teach to make others smart. That's the difference between a speaker and a servant leader. In conversation, when you notice someone confused or overwhelmed, don't keep pushing your point. Slow down, ask questions, rephrase your words, shift your language until it lands for them. That's real communication. That's service, and that's how trust is earned. Not just through what you know, but through how you deliver it. In personal relationships, speaking to serve changes everything. Instead of reacting with judgment, you respond with curiosity. Instead of trying to win, you try to understand. And when people feel understood, their guard drops, their hearts open, and real intimacy begins. Most people want to be heard. But even more than that, they want to be cared for. And when your words reflect care, not control, you become unforgettable. You've probably seen someone give a passionate speech that fell flat. Technically perfect, maybe. Confident posture, maybe. But something didn't feel right. The audience clapped, but didn't connect. That's because performance without purpose always feels hollow. People can feel when you're speaking for yourself and when you're speaking for them. When great communicators step onto a stage, they're not thinking, "Look at me," they're thinking, "How can I lift you?" That shift from spotlight to support is what creates a ripple in every room. To be persuasive, stop aiming for applause, aim for impact. In business, the same rule applies. The best leaders don't use communication to assert dominance. They use it to activate people. They speak in a way that makes their team believe, not just in the company, but in themselves. That belief multiplies. It flows down through conversations, meetings, culture, and suddenly you have a team that doesn't just work together, but trusts each other. It all starts with one voice choosing to serve, not show off. Even in conflict, the person who speaks with service as their motive will always come out with their integrity intact. You don't have to win every argument. You have to protect the relationship. Speak in a way that de-escalates. Listen for what's not being said. And choose words that build, not break. There's power in restraint. Great communicators speak less when tension is high. They let others talk themselves down. They allow silence to cool emotions, and then they speak slowly, clearly, and with kindness. That's not weakness. That's leadership. There's something else too. When you speak to serve, people become more open to your influence because they trust that your motives are pure. You're not manipulating. You're not selling. You're not angling. You're simply trying to help, and help always finds a way in. It might be through your tone, or your timing, or your honesty. But when people feel served, not sold, they lean in, and they remember. The best therapists, counselors, mentors, they're not powerful because they speak often. They're powerful because when they do speak, their words land, and the reason those words land is because the intent behind them is loving, generous, humble. People remember how you made them feel. If your words make them feel seen, safe, and strong, you've already won more than any flashy speaker ever could. Let's not forget the power of humility here. The most influential communicators don't pretend to know it all. They admit when they're unsure. They ask questions. They invite dialogue. Because service begins with listening, not broadcasting. Confidence and humility are not opposites. In fact, they often walk hand in hand in great communicators. Confidence says, "I believe this." Humility says, "But I'm still learning." That balance is magnetic because it's real. So if you want to grow your influence, stop memorizing scripts. Start developing your spirit. Ask yourself, before every conversation, who am I here to serve? What does this person need? How can I leave them stronger than I found them? Those questions will shape your tone, your rhythm, your presence, and slowly, you'll notice a shift. People open up to you faster. They remember your words longer. They seek your opinion more often. Not because you're louder, but because your words lift, not crush. And in a noisy world, someone who lifts becomes a voice people return to. So whether you're speaking to a crowd, coaching a team, mentoring a student, or just having a hard conversation with someone you love, don't aim to impress, aim to elevate. Speak with the heart of someone who wants to give, not gain. And you'll find that your voice without shouting starts to carry. Because service is the language that transcends titles, platforms, and credentials. Service is the real source of influence. Chapter 8. The Unspoken Language of Presence. Before a word leaves your mouth, your presence speaks. Long before someone hears what you say, they feel how you show up. This is the language of energy, calm or chaotic, warm or distant, grounded or uncertain. And great communicators know that how you enter the room often says more than what you say inside it. Presence isn't about being extroverted. It's not about commanding attention. It's about commanding respect without demanding it. The most persuasive people don't force their voice into the space, they settle into it. They create a quiet gravity that draws others in. You can feel it when someone is present with you. They're not distracted. They're not scanning the room. They're not rehearsing their next sentence. They're here, with you, fully. And that feeling, that depth of attention, is rare. That's why it's powerful. We live in a world where everyone is trying to speak louder. But the greatest communicators don't compete for noise. They master stillness. They give their full focus to the moment, to the person, to the need, and in doing so, they create something most people are starved for: real connection. You don't need to be charismatic to have presence. You don't need to be loud, dramatic, or stylish. Presence is quiet. It's often invisible, but people feel it in their chest. It makes them breathe easier, trust quicker, and open deeper. Presence begins with intention. When you step into any space before speaking, ask yourself, why am I here? Who am I here for? What do I hope they feel after this? That clarity grounds you. It slows your nervous energy. It shifts you from self-consciousness to purpose consciousness. And when you speak from that grounded place, people don't just listen, they lean in. The best communicators are rarely the ones who speak first. They're the ones who listen longest. They observe. They notice what others miss. They wait for the right moment, not to steal attention, but to offer value. And when they speak, it cuts through the noise like a clean blade. Think of someone you admire, not just for their words, but for their presence. Maybe it was a mentor, a parent, a stranger. They didn't have to say much, but when they did, it stayed with you. Why? Because they were fully there. No distraction, no hidden agenda, just focused presence. In high-stakes moments, negotiations, interviews, difficult conversations, presence becomes your most trusted tool. When your mind is still, your voice becomes clear. When your body is grounded, your message becomes believable. And when your heart is open, your words carry weight. But let's not mistake presence for perfection. Presence doesn't mean always knowing the right thing to say. It means being real in the moment, vulnerable, if needed, honest, always. Present communicators don't hide behind polished scripts. They trust their grounded self to guide the flow. Even silence, when held with presence, becomes powerful. The ability to pause, to breathe, to reflect, to hold space is one of the most overlooked tools in communication, because it signals confidence. It gives others room to think, and it shows that you're not just speaking to speak, you're speaking to connect. People feel it when you're fully with them. It's in your eye contact. It's in your still hands. It's in your measured tone. And when people feel you, they trust you. Many people ask, how do I develop presence? The answer is simple, but not easy. Practice being with people, not just talking to them. When someone speaks, listen without preparing your reply. Notice their body language. Hear their tone. Let their words land before you lift yours. Be there, fully there. This is especially important in leadership. A leader with presence doesn't just issue commands, they make people feel safe. Safe to speak, safe to fail, safe to grow. And that safety is born from consistency. Grounded leaders don't change with the wind. Their tone doesn't shift with mood. Their words aren't dipped in ego. They stay calm, stay kind, and stay real. In romantic relationships, presence builds intimacy faster than compliments ever could. When your partner speaks and you truly listen, not half-heartedly, not with one eye on your phone, you build a bridge. You show them that their voice matters, that they matter. Children know the difference too. You can't fake presence with a child. They feel it instantly. A parent might be physically close, but emotionally distant, and the child knows. But a parent who kneels, makes eye contact, listens slowly. That parent leaves a memory that shapes the child's sense of worth for life. Presence is a love language. So is it easy? No, especially in today's world of constant distraction. But if you want to stand out as a communicator, you must do what others avoid. Slow down, close the mental tabs, return to the person in front of you. When you're speaking to a group, don't focus on your lines. Focus on the people. Make eye contact. Read the energy. Adjust your rhythm. Let the room shape your voice. Presence means you're not speaking at people, you're speaking with them. You're aware, responsive, tuned in, and that tuning in is what creates resonance. That's what people remember long after your words fade. Now here's something critical. Presence also means being with yourself. Before you can offer connection to others, you must anchor it within. Self-awareness, self-respect, self-grounding. These are the roots of real presence. If your mind is frantic, your voice will be too. If your heart is anxious, your words will wobble. But if you cultivate stillness within, even just a few deep breaths before a conversation, you bring a different energy, a calmer one, a more trusted one. You don't need to speak with force when your presence speaks for you. People often overestimate the power of perfect phrasing and underestimate the power of peace. When you bring peace into a space, your words become medicine. You soothe without sugarcoating. You lead without pushing. You inspire without controlling. The world doesn't need louder communicators. It needs deeper ones, and depth begins with presence. So the next time you prepare to speak, pause, close your eyes, ask yourself, what does this person or room need most right now? Not what you want to say, not what you want to prove, but what will serve. That question alone will bring you back into presence. You don't need years of training to develop it. You just need a commitment to show up fully as you are, where you are, for who you're with. And when you do that consistently, over time, something magical happens. Your words carry more than meaning. They carry trust. They carry influence. And they carry you authentically, fully, powerfully. That's presence, and it's one of the greatest secrets of the world's most persuasive communicators. Chapter 9: Vulnerability is Strength. The most powerful voice in the room is not always the loudest. It's the most honest. And among all the tools great communicators possess, one separates the good from the unforgettable: vulnerability. In a world that rewards polish and punishes flaws, vulnerability can seem like a weakness. It isn't. It's the raw material of trust. When you speak from a place of openness, without masks, without armor, you create a space where others feel safe enough to do the same. Great communicators don't build connection by appearing perfect. They build it by being real. There's a certain magic that happens when someone drops the act. You can hear it in their voice. Their words stop trying to impress. They just land. Honest, unfiltered, straight from the heart. And people, whether they admit it or not, are starving for that kind of realness. Vulnerability isn't about dumping emotions or oversharing private wounds. It's about speaking from your truth, even when it shakes a little. It's about letting others see you, not just the role you're playing. When someone says, "I don't know," and means it, trust grows. When someone says, "I was wrong," and owns it, respect deepens. When someone says, "This is hard for me," and shows up anyway, connection forms. These moments of transparency are what make communication human. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to show up honestly. Look at some of the most powerful speeches in history. Behind the cadence, behind the slogans, there was always truth. Real fear, real hope, real pain. That's what moves people. Not perfection, not performance. Truth. Vulnerability strips away the performance. It allows people to see your humanity before they see your credentials. Think about the last time someone shared a story that moved you. Was it because they sounded perfect, or because they were willing to open up, to share a part of themselves that wasn't polished or rehearsed, but real? In relationships, vulnerability is the bridge that leads to intimacy. Without it, everything stays surface level. You can speak for hours and still say nothing. But with vulnerability, one sentence can change everything. I need you. I'm scared. I miss the way we used to talk. I made a mistake. These are the sentences that heal, that bring people closer, that matter. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Vulnerability always feels risky. That's why so few people practice it. But great communicators know the truth. The deeper the risk, the deeper the reward. You can't build deep trust without opening a part of yourself. You can't expect people to share if you never do, and you can't expect to influence hearts if you're only speaking from the mind. Vulnerability lives in the heart. It's not a tactic, it's a posture, a way of being. And when practiced with intention, it becomes a source of power, not weakness. When leaders are vulnerable, they gain followers, not just in title, but in loyalty. When speakers are vulnerable, their message lingers, not because of what they said, but because of how they made people feel. And when friends or partners are vulnerable, love grows, not because everything is perfect, but because everything is real. Still, many people fear vulnerability because of one reason: judgment. The fear of being seen as too emotional, too soft, too weak. But here's the truth. Most people aren't judging you. They're relieved you're being real, because your courage gives them permission to do the same. We live in a world where people scroll through filters and performances every day. That's why when someone drops all that and simply says, "Here I am," it feels revolutionary. Authenticity is rare, and rare things hold value. So how do you practice vulnerability in communication? First, slow down. Rushing leads to surface-level words. Presence, on the other hand, allows you to feel what you really want to say. To pause, to speak from the center, not just from the script. Second, own your story. You don't need to share every detail, but acknowledge your journey, your struggle, your process. People don't connect to the success, they connect to the climb. Third, let go of the need to impress. Trying to sound perfect is the fastest way to sound fake. People aren't inspired by your polish. They're inspired by your process, your effort, your willingness to keep showing up even when it's hard. Finally, listen vulnerably. Communication isn't just about what you say. It's also about how you receive others. When someone opens up, don't rush to fix them. Don't jump in with advice. Just hold space. Nod. Stay with them. That silence is sacred. Vulnerability isn't just about expression. It's about presence, being with someone in their emotion, standing beside them, without trying to edit or escape. That's what builds trust. Even in professional settings, vulnerability has a place. Saying, "I don't have the full answer yet, but here's what I'm thinking," shows strength. Admitting, "I made the wrong call," shows integrity. Saying, "This decision isn't easy," shows humanity. The key is discernment. Vulnerability doesn't mean oversharing or dramatizing. It means being guided by truth instead of image. Every word rooted in honesty, every sentence built from self-awareness. And yes, it takes practice. Vulnerability is a muscle. At first it might feel uncomfortable, but over time it becomes your advantage. Because here's what most people never learn: the more real you are, the more people will trust you, remember you, and follow you. We are wired to respond to vulnerability. We may forget someone's name, we may forget their words, but we remember the person who made us feel seen. And that's what great communicators do. They help others feel seen by first being willing to be seen themselves. The moment you stop performing and start showing up honestly, your voice will carry a different weight. It will touch something deeper, something lasting. And the influence you build from that place will never be forgotten. Chapter 10. The Power of Timing and Silence. Great communicators don't just focus on what to say, they master when to say it. Timing is one of the most underrated skills in communication. And silence? Silence is the invisible tool most people are too afraid to use. The difference between an average speaker and a captivating one often comes down to rhythm, not speed. Rhythm. The ability to pause before delivering a punchline, the confidence to wait before answering a question, the wisdom to say nothing when emotions are high. These choices create impact far beyond words. Think about a great song. It's not powerful just because of the notes. It's powerful because of the spaces between them. The beat, the anticipation, the rise and the rest. Communication works the same way. Without rhythm, your words are noise. With rhythm, your words become music. A well-timed pause makes your listener lean in. It creates tension. It signals that something meaningful is coming. Silence is not empty. It's full of possibility. But most people fear silence. They rush to fill the gaps. They confuse talking with connecting. The result? They speak too much, too fast, and too shallow. They leave no space for others to process, reflect, or respond. When you speak too quickly, you rob your message of weight. You rush past the moment where your listener could have said, "That hit me." But when you pause, just for a moment, your words have time to breathe. Your listener has time to feel. Silence is not just about dramatic delivery. It's a form of listening. The best communicators know how to hold space for others. They don't interrupt. They don't jump in with solutions. They stay present in the silence, letting it do its work. There's a certain respect that comes from silence. It says, "I'm not here to dominate this moment. I'm here to be in it." In high-stakes conversations, silence is often where the truth lives. A leader who pauses before answering earns trust. A parent who stays quiet while a child struggles to speak earns closeness. A partner who listens without rushing earns understanding. Even in conflict, silence can be powerful. It creates room for de-escalation. It gives people a chance to calm down, gather thoughts, and return with less heat. Silence doesn't mean defeat, it means discipline. In negotiation, timing is everything. Say too much too soon, and you give away your leverage. But wait, breathe. Hold back just enough, and you shift the energy. You take control. You guide the flow. And often, it's in the pause that the other person reveals what really matters. Timing is about sensitivity, the ability to read the room, to know when to speak, when to wait, when to shift. Some people speak too early and miss the moment. Others speak too late and miss the connection. But those who master timing, they make every word land. Think of great comedians. Their jokes aren't always complex. But their timing, that split-second pause before the punchline, is what makes people laugh. In the same way, a communicator who understands rhythm can turn a simple sentence into a moment. Even in personal conversations, timing matters. A well-placed "I love you" means more than 100 said without feeling. A pause before saying "I'm sorry" lets the heart prepare. A moment of silence after someone shares pain says, "I'm here and I'm feeling it with you." We live in a world of noise, notifications, ads, chatter, content. Every second is filled with sound. That's why silence now carries power. When someone speaks slowly, when someone waits to respond, they stand out, they feel different. More grounded, more deliberate. The best communicators often speak less, but say more. They use silence like punctuation, not just between sentences, but between thoughts. They speak in layers, a statement, a pause, a reflection, another pause, then the next idea. This rhythm makes the message stick. And the impact isn't just felt, it's remembered. Silence is also where connection happens. Not everything needs a reply. Sometimes just being there is enough. You don't have to fix. You don't have to solve. You just have to stay present. That's where healing begins. The challenge is that silence makes us feel vulnerable. It's uncomfortable. It feels exposed. But that's exactly why it's powerful. It forces realness. It brings people back into themselves. When you're silent, you can listen more deeply, not just to others, but to yourself. You start to notice your emotions, your thoughts, your fears. Silence teaches you how to be aware, and awareness is the foundation of all great communication. Even in storytelling, silence adds weight. Imagine a speaker telling a personal story. Just when it gets emotional, they stop. They look down. They breathe. That moment, that pause, tells the audience, this is real. And suddenly, everyone is leaning forward, not because of what was said, but because of what was felt. That's the power of silence. Timing also shows up in knowing how long to talk. Great communicators know when to stop. They don't over-explain. They don't stretch a point beyond its value. They say what needs to be said, and then they let go. This discipline is rare. Most people fear being misunderstood, so they say too much. But great communicators trust the silence. They trust their message. They don't rush to control every second. They let their words rest. This takes practice. It requires patience. It demands presence. One of the best ways to develop this skill is to record yourself speaking. Listen not just to the words, but to the rhythm. Do you give your audience time to think? Do you allow space between thoughts? Are you afraid of silence? These are signs worth noticing. Another way is through conversation. When someone is talking, don't plan your reply, just listen. When they finish, wait one beat before speaking. Let their words settle. Let your heart respond, not just your mind. This simple habit will transform your presence. In leadership, timing shows emotional intelligence. The leader who knows when to speak and when not to builds credibility. They don't react, they respond. They think, they feel, then they speak. And when they do, people listen. In relationships, silence often says more than speech. Sitting in quiet with someone without the need to fill the air is a sign of deep trust. Two people comfortable in stillness, that's rare. That's real connection. Children, too, respond to silence. A parent's loud voice might demand obedience, but a silent stare filled with compassion that teaches, that touches. Timing and presence communicate values that words often cannot. At its core, communication is not about controlling the conversation. It's about creating a space where truth can land. And sometimes, the most truthful thing you can do is say nothing. It's okay to pause. It's okay to breathe. It's okay to let a moment pass without words. Because when you do speak again, your words will carry weight. Chapter 11. The mirror effect of communication. There's a reason the best communicators seem to have a magnetic pull. It's not just what they say. It's how they make people feel about themselves. When someone talks and you suddenly feel smarter, stronger, or more capable. That's not a coincidence. That's intentional influence. And this kind of influence doesn't come from fancy vocabulary or smooth rehearsed lines. It comes from a deep understanding of how human beings reflect energy, emotion, and belief. The mirror effect of communication is one of the most powerful tools a person can carry. And the great ones, they use it without making it obvious. People rarely remember your exact words, but they remember how your presence made them feel. They remember whether your voice made them feel small or seen, whether your eyes looked past them or into them, whether your words lifted them or drained them. In every room, there are echoes of invisible messages being exchanged. The tone of your voice, the timing of your pauses, even the strength behind your silence, it all becomes part of the message. And those who master communication know this. People are not only listening to you, they are reflecting you. They are mirroring what you project. That's the real game. The mirror effect starts with one simple truth. People want to feel safe. Safe to be themselves. Safe to speak freely. Safe to open up. And when someone enters a conversation with judgment, tension, or distraction, they unconsciously trigger a protective shield in others. It could be subtle, a tightening in the shoulders, a more formal tone, a little less eye contact, but the change is real. On the other hand, when someone enters with warmth, patience, and curiosity, it creates room for the other person to relax, to lean in, to show more, to listen more. Great communicators understand that every interaction is like standing in front of a mirror. If you bring calm, you get calm. If you bring urgency, you get urgency. If you bring doubt, you get defensiveness. If you bring belief, you unlock possibility. And the most important mirror is not in the other person, it's within yourself. Because communication is not just about managing others, it's about managing your own emotional temperature before you step into the room. Let's say you're about to have a hard conversation. Maybe it's a negotiation, maybe it's a relationship check-in, or maybe it's a team correction. The average communicator walks in reactive, nervous, defensive, or ready to prove something. But the great ones? They do the inner work first. They sit in the car or stand in front of the bathroom mirror and get clear. Who am I going to be when I speak? What energy am I bringing into this space? They strip away the noise and ground themselves in calm, clarity, and control, because they know what you bring in is what you pull out. And this doesn't mean pretending. Real confidence is not loud or forceful. It's grounded, quietly powerful. When someone walks in holding their center, they don't need to dominate. Their tone is even. Their words are steady, and it creates a mirror of calm in the other person. You can almost feel the temperature drop. You can see shoulders drop, breathing slows, tension melts, and suddenly what felt like a wall becomes a doorway. In every moment of communication, people are watching your eyes for honesty, they're watching your body for truth, they're feeling your pauses for permission. When someone speaks with clear intent, without rushing, without apologizing, it invites others to match that rhythm. If your tone is patient, others feel safe taking their time. If your voice is kind, others feel safe being real, and that's when transformation happens. The mirror effect also applies to self-belief. When a person speaks to you like you matter, you start believing you do. That's why one conversation can change the trajectory of someone's life. A mentor who says, "I see something in you." A coach who says, "You have what it takes." A parent who whispers, "I'm proud of you." Those moments stay forever, not because the words were complicated, but because the tone carried belief. And belief is contagious. Now let's flip the lens. Think about how often people are walking around carrying doubt, carrying shame, carrying insecurity. Most of the time they don't need you to solve their problems. They just need you to not make it worse. They need you to see them without shrinking them, to speak without cutting, to listen without judging. If your presence can reflect back a sense of worth, even for a few minutes, you've done more than communicate. You've healed. Great communicators know when to speak with authority and when to soften. They know when to challenge and when to hold space. They're not perfect, but they are consistent. And more importantly, they're intentional. They don't leave conversations to chance. They don't rely on mood. They decide in advance, this is who I will be in this room. This is how I will show up. This self-leadership is what separates average from elite. Because the truth is, you're always sending a message, even when you're silent, especially when you're silent. People read silence more than words. They fill in the gaps with their own fears, their own doubts, their own assumptions. That's why clarity matters. That's why intention matters. A calm voice can become a lighthouse in someone's storm. Sometimes being a powerful communicator means not trying to fix anything. It means holding space without rushing to fill it. Silence, when used with care, becomes a canvas, a place for the other person to pour out what's been bottled up, to hear their own thoughts, to process in real time. And in that silence, your presence says, I'm here. I'm not leaving. You're safe. Imagine how rare that is in today's world. We are surrounded by noise. Noise on social media, noise in the workplace, noise in our heads. So when someone shows up with presence, with stillness, with quiet confidence, it cuts through all of that. It makes you lean in. It makes you remember. The mirror effect isn't manipulation. It's not about tricking anyone. It's about alignment. When your tone, your body, your timing, and your words all tell the same story, people feel safe, trusting you. They don't need to guess what you meant. They don't need to decode your meaning. They feel it. And when people feel understood, they listen. They follow. They open up. And here's the deeper truth. Great communication is not about getting people to agree with you. It's about helping them trust themselves in your presence. When you create that kind of space, decisions become easier. Conflicts resolve quicker, and relationships grow deeper. Because in that space, people aren't fighting to be heard. They already are. At the end of the day, the mirror effect teaches one powerful lesson. What you project is what you receive. If you want more respect, speak with respect. If you want more connection, speak with honesty. If you want to be trusted, be trustworthy in how you listen. And if you want to influence, reflect belief so strong that others begin to believe in themselves. Every great communicator leaves a trail, not just of words, but of emotions. Long after the conversation ends, people remember how you made them feel. They remember the calm you carried, the kindness in your tone, the certainty in your silence. And if you can master that, you'll never need to raise your voice to raise your influence. Chapter 12, The Quiet Power That Changes Everything. It wasn't loud voices that built the bridges between people. It wasn't noise that stitched together communities or softened hardened hearts. It was something quieter, older, and far more difficult to fake trust. The greatest communicators in the world never needed to dominate a room. They never had to convince with volume. Instead, they showed up with presence. They listened like the other person's story was the most important thing in the world, and when they spoke, they did so like their words were promises carved in stone. The truth is, there's a secret thread running through every persuasive mind in history. It's not just what they say, it's how they live. The congruence between their voice and their character creates an invisible gravity. People can feel when the words are aligned with the walk, and once someone feels that you don't need to shout, you don't need to manipulate. Trust does all the work. But building trust doesn't happen by accident. It begins when a person starts showing up for themselves, day after day, small actions, private victories, the kind of discipline no one sees. When you're willing to live with integrity behind closed doors, your words carry a different weight when the lights come on. People can feel the difference between someone who speaks from experience and someone who speaks from theory. One draws attention, the other draws loyalty. In this world, communication is not just a skill, it is currency. It buys cooperation, unlocks opportunity, and opens the hearts of strangers. But it only flows to those who have learned the most difficult lesson of all. People don't remember what you say, they remember how you made them feel. And if you can learn to make people feel safe, seen, understood, you'll never lack influence. Influence is not control, it's not trickery, it's not empty charisma. Real influence is the ability to move people toward something better because you carry something better. That's what the world's most persuasive minds understand. They don't push, they invite. They don't demand, they demonstrate. They don't seek to be admired. They aim to serve. There's a strange paradox here. The more you chase attention, the less you're trusted. But the more grounded you become, the more people begin to lean in. It's not about spotlighting yourself. It's about becoming the kind of person whose voice naturally rises above the noise, even when spoken in a whisper. That kind of presence is cultivated. It's earned. It's practiced in silence, long before it's ever tested in public. The best communicators are never the ones who speak the most. They're the ones who understand when not to speak. They've trained their emotions. They've mastered their posture. They don't flinch when things go wrong. They don't gossip when no one's watching. And when they finally open their mouth to speak, the room quiets. Not because of their reputation, but because of their resonance. Trust, once earned, becomes the foundation of persuasion. And it's earned moment by moment. You build it when you're consistent. You build it when you show up on time, when you follow through, when you honor your word. Even when it costs you something, especially when it costs you something, because in that moment, people see who you are. And that's what makes your words matter. Persuasion without trust is manipulation. And manipulation has a short shelf life. It might get a transaction, but it will never build a relationship. That's why the world's greatest communicators don't aim for one-time wins. They play the long game. They plant seeds. They nurture connections. They let the fruit speak for itself. The goal is not to sound important. The goal is to be clear. Clear in your thinking. Clear in your intention. Clear in your delivery. Because clarity is kindness. Clarity tells people, you're safe here. I know where I'm going, and I'll bring you with me. And when people feel that, they'll follow, not out of pressure, out of trust. And in a world that's noisy, fast, and impatient, trust is rare. That's why it's powerful. That's why it stands out. That's why people remember it. You don't have to compete with louder voices when your voice carries trust. You just have to be patient and consistent and true. The world has enough talkers. What it needs is leaders. What it needs is people whose communication is not decoration, it's declaration, a reflection of the life they live. And that starts with you. Every time you speak, you're teaching people how to treat you. Every time you stay calm under pressure, you're showing them your strength. Every time you pause to listen deeply, you're building something stronger than influence. You're building respect. And if you stay committed to the path, learning, refining, growing, one day you'll speak, and the right people will stop and listen. Not because you forced them, not because you demanded their attention, but because your voice will echo the truth that lives in you. That's what great communicators do. That's what you're becoming. So now, we've reached the end of this book. But if you've listened this far, you know this is only the beginning. This is the start of a better voice, a stronger presence, a quieter, deeper power that doesn't need to shout to be heard. If this message spoke to something in you, if it helped you grow even 1%, then stay with us. Subscribe, because we're just getting started. There are more stories to tell, more truths to share, and more ways to speak with strength, softness, and soul. Your voice matters. Use it well.